ABC Kinderteach presents an interactive version of Elizabeti Doll by Stephanie Stuve-Bodeen, illustrated by Christy Hale. Elizabeti had a new baby brother named Obadiah. Elizabeti watched Mama take care of him, and she wanted to care for her own baby. Wow, there's Elizabeti, and there's her brother Obadiah, and there's her mama, and it looks like she really likes that baby. She didn't have a doll, but she went outside and picked up a stick. She tried to hug it, but it poked her and she dropped it on the ground. Then Elizabeti picked up a rock. It was just the right size to hold, and it didn't poke Elizabeti when she hugged it. She kissed the rock and named it Eva. So she does not have a regular doll, so she goes outside to find something that she could pretend is a doll, and so she finds this rock, right? And so she calls the rock Eva. I wonder how she came up with that name. When baby Obadiah had a bath, he splashed and got Mama wet. When Eva had a bath, the rock, she behaved very nicely and only splashed a little. She only splashed a little. The rock only splashed a little. That's kind of funny, isn't it? Mama fed Obadiah and gave him a loud burp. Elizabeti fed Eva, but she was too polite to burp. So Elizabeti believes that Eva did not burp because she was too nice. She was too polite. Well, of course, it's also because she's a rock, right? That's kind of silly, but she likes to pretend, doesn't she? And there's nothing wrong with that. Mama changed the cloth wrapped around Obadiah's bottom, and it was very messy, which means he went to the bathroom in his pants. Elizabeti was very relieved to find that Eva's bottom was still clean. When it says that Elizabeti was very relieved, it means that she was a little bit nervous, thinking that the rock might have had an accident, and when she was relieved means that she was no longer worried after she saw that there was no problem. When Mama did her chores, her jobs around the house, she tied Obadiah onto her back with a bright cloth called a kanga. When Elizabeti did her chores, her jobs, she also tied Eva onto her back with a kanga. Mama had to help a little putting the kanga on, and there is the kanga right there. And so they do that so they can do their work and have their babies close to them. There's Obadiah on Mama's back, and there's Eva, the rock, on Elizabeti's back. Elizabeti went to visit her friend Raheli. Raheli laughed when she saw that Elizabeti had a rock for a doll. She thought that was silly. But Raheli didn't have a doll either, so when Elizabeti left, Raheli found her own rock and named it Malusi. So she says, having a rock, pretend a rock is a doll, is a good idea, so she found her own rock. That's pretty smart to do that. When Elizabeti got home, it was time for her to get water from the village well. See, where Elizabeti lives, they don't have water in their house. They have to go outside to this big hole in the ground, and then they scoop up the water and they bring it back to where they are cooking. She took Eva out of the kanga and laid her on the ground near some other rocks so she wouldn't get lonely. So she said, here's some other rocks so you won't be lonely. That's kind of funny, isn't it? Then Elizabeti wrapped the kanga into a small bundle, put it on top of her head, and placed the water jug on top of the kanga. This is how she always carried water and other heavy things. So she's carrying it on top of her head. There's the rock. wrapped in the kanga, and the water's on top of her head. And she's not even holding it up. She's walking without even holding it up. That is hard to do. I don't think I could do that, do you? Elizabeti soon returned with the water and took it to her sister Pendo. There's Pendo. Inside the cooking hut where all the family's meals were made. So they have a cooking hut where they make their meals. Then Elizabeti ran outside to get Eva, but Eva was gone. Elizabeti looked all around, but she couldn't find Eva. Oh, she is upset. She lost her doll. Mama found a new rock and gave it to Elizabeti. Elizabeti shook her head when she saw it. The rock was just a rock. She said, that's not Eva, my rock. It's just a regular rock. Pendo also brought Elizabeti a rock, but it wasn't Eva either. So she knows what Eva looks like, what kind of rock she is. Elizabeti was very sad and sat quietly until it was time to help Pendo in the cooking hut. Look at there, looks like that chicken's trying to be her friend, but she doesn't want anything to do with that chicken. The family had rice for dinner every night, and it was Elizabeti's job to put the pot of rice on the fire pit, which was made of 3 large stones. Stones are another name for rock. Elizabeti sadly filled the pot with water and set it on the stones to boil. But one of the stones wasn't a stone at all. It was Eva. Elizabeti called for Mama, and together they moved the pot of water and rolled Eva away from the fire. Although Eva was a bit dirty, she hadn't been hurt because she's a rock, right? She's a rock. Pendo ran outside to get a new stone for the fire pit, which is just how poor Eva had become lost. So what had happened is Pendo went outside and grabbed a rock, and it happened to be Eva for the fire pit in their where they cook. Eva sat quietly while Elizabeti cleaned her off and hugged her. So she said, "Oh, you're all better. I cleaned you up," and gave her a hug because she likes her. Because she has you hug your dolls, right? People hug their dolls. At bedtime, Mama sang a lullaby and rocked Obadiah in her arms until he fell asleep. And a lullaby is just a song a mom sings to her baby to help them fall asleep. Elizabeti sang a lullaby too, but she fell asleep before Eva did because Eva's a rock, so she must have been really tired from taking care of her rock doll all day long. Mama covered Elizabeti and Eva with a blanket. She smiled and thought that one day Elizabeti would make a fine mother. Eva thought so too, so the rock thought that Elizabeti was going to be a good mom someday too. That's funny too.